and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two people compulsively comb through Wiki Commons trying to find images of some obscure event in history and then figure out the backstory behind it, report that history to their friend, and allow you to listen in like the little KGB eavesdropper that you apparently are. I'm host one, I'm Teresa, and that.
I'm Angie, and I just want to know if you combing the Wiki Commons archive is where our story comes from today.
What?
What?
What? Oh, that's right,
You
because
said
I'm going only. I am, dang it. Okay. I was hoping to do more embroidery, but here we are. Okay.
you want to hand it over?
I
I'll
mean, why not?
I'll
Hey,
assist
I'm
her
just gonna
out.
give you my notes. You tell me the story I wrote down, and we're gonna have a great time.
It'll be
Um,
so much fun.
okay, so a couple weeks ago, I told you about Toto Koopman, first biracial
Yes.
model slash World War II spy slash she can do anything you can do. Um,
Better and backwards.
And in passing, I made a comment about one of her lovers, Tallulah Bankhead, and said, I've got to cover her. Today, I'm going to cover her. Today is the
I'm so
day.
excited I didn't have to wait forever.
Okay.
Thank you.
My sources, Women's History Network, The Politics of Tallulah Bankhead, by Ashley Stinson, The New Yorker, Darling, The Strange Case of Tallulah Bankhead by Robert Gottlieb,
Did
Alabama
you say the
Women's,
strange case?
yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, no, it just shows you're listening to me, and I'm here for that. I like being observed. Alabama Women's Hall of Fame, Tallulah Brockman Bankhead, 1903 to 1968, and Tallulah Bankhead, A Passionate Life Biography. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Please and thank you.
Tallulah Brockman Bankhead, born in Huntsville, Alabama, 1902. Now we got Ada, Tallulah's mother. She dies, not dries, tragically of blood poisoning just 3 weeks following Tallulah's birth.
Mm.
And on her deathbed, she told her sister-in-law to take care of Virginia, Tallulah's older sister, and then follows it up by saying Tallulah will always be able to take care of herself.
Okay.
This baby is weeks old, and mother is like, no, that one's got it.
Uh,
Honestly,
okay. Yeah, okay, because listen, when my youngest was born, I knew he was gonna rule the world. It's like, yep, you got it, bub. I can go, mom, go.
all right. Because I'm just like, look, this little thing needs help with everything. But maybe that was indicative of me needing to parent. Um,
I taught you how to use a spoon. This is kind of what I always remind my teenagers. Like,
uh,
don't be a jerk. You couldn't eat before me.
so Tallulah's mom's death haunts her for her entire life. It also really destroys her dad
Fair.
because Ada's only 21 years old, and dad describes her as the most beautiful thing that ever lived.
Her mom is
The
Ada,
mom is
right?
so beautiful, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So Will, dad, is so grief-stricken that he collapses into a pattern of alcoholism and self-pity and not absence, not abstinence, for years.
Hmm. I hate it when that happens.
Anything but therapy.
Can that
Now,
be what this episode's called?
now, I should let you know that the Bankheads of Alabama, they're not rich, but according to sources, they're aristocracy. William Bankhead's father and brother are both United States senators.
Okay.
So,
So they're doing all right.
yeah, I mean, not rich, but they have power. They have enough money to keep their heads above water. Um, the motherless Tallulah and her sister Eugenia are both reared by their grandparents and aunts with strict guidelines, which they ignored. And then they have this
Good for them.
incredible sense of privilege, which everybody indulged.
Good for them.
What's the worst that can happen? Now, as they grow up in Jasper, Alabama, in this, okay, so they're not rich, but quote, they live in a mansion built in 1910. So
But not
they're
rich.
I mean, look, they're maybe not on paper, right? Maybe they don't have the liquid, assets.
It's just buried in the mattress.
Yeah. But
Okay.
Senator John Hollis Bankhead, grandpa, um, is the one who kind of gives them all this that they technically are rich. But eventually they move to boarding schools and they change boarding schools at a regular clip, and this tends to correspond with Tallulah getting expelled.
It tends to correspond.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Now, Tallulah and Eugenia's grandmother and aunt are determined to make proper Southern ladies out of both of them. And soon it becomes obvious to anybody with a set of goddamn eyes that the girls are becoming a handful,
Shocking.
right? So William, dad, proposes enrolling them in a convent school to tame them.
I this is not gonna go well.
His mother, Grandma, who is a stout Episcopalian, she kind of refuses at first, but then she changes her mind then when she learns it's the only type of boarding school that would admit girls as young as 10.
Oh my God. That has the exact same attitude as me threatening to send my eldest to military school when he was like 7. I
If West,
100% was not going to, but the threat was there and he thought it was delightfully not what he wanted.
but see, now imagine you're like, you know what? We need to keep them in the Protestant faith. They'll take them now. Bye, girls. I packed your bag. There's sandwiches inside.
I was just gonna say, there's little sandwiches.
So, 1912, both girls are promptly enrolled at the Convent of the Sacred Heart in Manhattanville, New York.
Okay.
Now, Tallulah hates convent school, but
Shocking.
grandma and father are impressed by these new things called manners, which she displays. They're novel, they've never shown up before.
Okay. Love
Now,
this.
Will pulls himself together and he goes on to be a successful politician, ending up as the much admired Speaker of the House under Roosevelt.
Oh, okay.
Tallulah, in turn, is a lifelong, passionate Democratic person who takes credit, some of it deserved, for helping elect both Truman and Kennedy.
Okay. Get it.
Okay, now politics, they're not the only passion that Tallulah gets from Daddy Dearest. When he's a young man, he had gone off to Boston. He wanted to try his luck as an actor.
Okay. Yeah, this fits. This checks.
But that no nonsense Episcopalian mother of his uh, hauls his ass back home with a no nonsense letter.
And I
So
like her.
I mean, I kind of see the full dynamic. Um, Tallulah, as a little girl, she is super hell bent on performing. And frequently, Will, when he's comes home absolutely hammered uh, with his pals, he lifts her up onto the dining room table and he has her entertain the boys with risque songs.
Of course. I thought we were doing so well. Okay.
Now, she revels in this, and she's this plump little child with startlingly gold hair, and she apparently was an exhibitionist from the beginning.
Oh, good for her.
Now, this she has this other side of her dramaticness that comes out, and it expresses itself in these incredibly wild tantrums. When she doesn't get her way, she throws an absolute conniption fit. She
I was expecting to hear literally anything but wild tantrum. Like that seemed par for the course. So when you said it, I was like, oh wait, nope, that's
No.
wrong.
Yeah, it
Go
can't be.
back.
That this was two in line. Teresa's going to come out with something non sequitur. She would later go on to say, "To deny me anything only inflames my desire."
I'm gonna need that and I'm gonna need that.
Like on a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she's described as throwing herself down. She would beat the floor. Her face would grow purple as she would scream bloody murder.
Okay.
It was so bad, her sister would hide in the closet. And her commonsensical grandmother, who would not deal with this nonsense, would just yeet a bucket of water on Tallulah's face. Which,
Get it together.
yeah, I honestly, it is this entire thing is a mood.
The whole family is a mood.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so the attempts at that conventional education for the Bankhead girls kind of goes awry because Eugenia, because this is the South, she has her debutante year and she would elope with a boy that she met that day. Like she just
Listen,
skedaddles.
if my sister was that damn dramatic about everything and this handsome boy walked in and I was a debutante, I would be like, meh, all right.
Bye.
Yeah, this can't be worse.
Yeah. So Tallulah at age 15 convinces her family she's born to be an actress.
They know.
They've seen it. The writing's been on the wall. Now, her senatorial grandfather, he ends up trying to pull strings to get her onto Broadway. She gets chaperoned by Aunt Louise, and they find themselves living at the Algonquin Hotel, which ends up having, like, I know I've heard that in like so many other actresses' backgrounds from this time period, right? Like, this was kind of like the who's
The
who
place.
place. And when she's there, she encountered the great and near great of the theatrical profession. She's interacting with John Barrymore, who, true to form, tries to seduce her in his dressing room. And she ends up having no schooling as an actress. The next line is she also lacked discipline. But the
Shocking.
pills, like she didn't pick it up anywhere. And she had this incredible charm and looks, and she was hell bent on prevailing. She is quoted to say, I was consumed by a fever to be famous, even infamous.
Fame is fame.
Yeah, yeah. So around age 15, she just overnight turns into this beautiful young woman. Remember, we told like as a little one, she was kind of plump. Um, so Eugenia at 16 gets married. Tallulah, she's got a lot more on her mind than boys. And life for her is about to just skyrocket because she's an avid reader of fan magazines. Think like Tiger Beat of our
Back in
childhood.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now she submits her photo to Picture Play, which I guess was a magazine. They're conducting a contest and awarding a trip to New York, plus a part in a movie to 12 lucky individuals based solely on photographs.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Tallulah learned that she's one of the winners while browsing through a magazine at a local drugstore.
Now is she already in New York by this point?
No, no. I
Okay.
I kind of told this story a little bit out of order. Sorry.
No,
Um,
that's okay. I just was like, wait, we're already there?
no, we're not. I'm sorry. This is how she gets to New York. There's so when she enters the contest, there's a slight problem. Tallulah failed to give her name and address so that she could be contacted directly. So
Oh,
her
Tallulah.
the photo in the magazine is who is she? That's how it's captioned. And they ask for the mystery lady to contact them at once. Picture Play is satisfied when Daddy Dearest, Congressman William Bankhead, sends them a letter with a duplicate photo of Tallulah. Like, this is the same image. This is my kid.
Okay.
Now, Tallulah, flippin' ecstatic because who wouldn't be? But dad and grandma are a little hesitant about sending this hellion to New York.
Fair.
But William Bankhead realizes that Tallulah, there's going to be no sleep till Brooklyn. She's not letting anybody have peace until she gets consent to go. And so,
You know who she reminds me of is Alice Roosevelt.
yes, very much so.
I love it. Okay.
Um, this is when Tallulah's grandfather agrees to finance her stay in New York, and Aunt Louise goes to act as a chaperone.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So Tallulah generally is out of funds. She's scrounging up any meal she can get her hands on. She's running up these massive bills at the Algonquin, whose long-suffering owner is a man named Frank Case, who announces at one point, I can either, and here's where you're going to get some Alice Roosevelt vibes, I can either run this hotel or look after Tallulah Bankhead. I can't do both.
Yes, I knew there was going to be a phrase like that. I can either run the country or take care of Alice. You pick.
Yeah. Now, she is slowly progressing from these walk-ons and small parts to these, or in these very lackluster, undistinguished plays. And it's 5 years in New York that she's trudging through and she's trying to get this big breakthrough that's not coming. She's frustrated, she's anxious, and she's broke. And this is when she gets this once in a lifetime opportunity to play opposite, should have looked up how to say his name, Du Maurier in London. I'm sure he's
Okay.
important. I literally don't say his name again. I didn't care. Um, and this is when she leaps at the opportunity because she is going to conquer the West End. And so she takes off to England to become an actress in 1920s London.
Okay.
Are you ready? Because this was the
Yes.
lead up.
I'm so excited.
In her desperation to be noticed, she's experimented with alcohol and cocaine.
Shocking.
But her main shock tactics, they involve sex.
You know how typically the sentence is at no point did I expect the next word to be what it was. This whole thing, I'm like, yup,
Yeah,
this
no,
checks.
this is the logic train. This is
And
what
that feels
happens.
uncomfortable.
Now, she has her first affair with this celebrated actress, Eva Le Gallienne. This woman's like 3 years her senior. And although she liked to boast about her irregular love life, saying, I'm a lesbian, she announced to a stranger at a party. What do you do?
Okay.
Um,
Love this for her.
she also told a friend, I could never become a lesbian because they've got no sense of humor.
God, I love her.
I mean,
And her grandma is just dying. I can just hear her.
I would say this woman's rolling in her grave, but she hasn't been able to stop and die yet.
No, she's never gonna have the opportunity to.
So later, she has friends like women like Billie Holiday.
I love Billie Holiday.
I know. Now, on the whole, Tallulah does have a taste for men, and it's early on that she meets a man that she cared for probably the longest and most deeply. It's a man whose name is Napier George Henry Stuart Arlington. He goes by Naps,
Oh, good.
and
I'm excited for that.
Naps is the third. It's not Arlington, it's Ailington. Ailington Baron.
Okay,
All
that's a
right.
win.
Now, in the words of a guy who I've never heard of before, her biographer, Lee Israel, the biographer, he describes Ailington as a soft-spoken, blonde, tubercular, cultivated bisexual with sensuous, meaty lips, a distant, antic charm, and a history of mysterious disappearances with a streak of cruelty.
I need you to know I heard no words past me lips.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Um, yeah, so
That is a
tubercular and
description.
meaty lips.
That is a description right there.
So Tallulah spends her time in London playing some contrarian women, and this ends up shaping the person and activist that she's going to become,
Okay.
which was a sentence I didn't see coming, but I was here for. There's an actress named Viola Tree who claimed that Bankhead was already a great conversationalist on political matters. And decades later, journalist Brendan Gill wrote that when the press interviewed Tallulah, they were indulged with, quote, information about politics, baseball, sexual intercourse, acting, the British royal family, mineral deposits in northern Alabama, gambling odds, gardening, breeds of dogs, brands of bourbon, and ballroom dancing.
At no point did I expect the next word, so thanks.
To
That
say
that
this
felt
girl was not
comforting.
ADHD, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So she's performing in 16 plays during those 8 years in England. She refers to them as her most exciting. And she acquires this following of mostly young women. She ends up buying a Bentley and then she dabbles in the drug scene. I feel like dabbles is probably wrong word. It's probably revels.
I think you're probably right. I feel like dabbling was when you were first experimenting with it.
Yeah, and I don't know if experimenting versus turning it into profession.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, she has a string of affairs. She also becomes engaged to two men. Neither relationship kind of works out. And there's a
Shocking.
playwright. I know. I mean, everything about this says this girl has commitment issues. Playwright Zoe Aiken claims that Bankhead had, quote, neither the patience nor the intention on waiting for opportunity.
Okay,
She's going to
I will
get it
make it
done.
myself. Yeah.
So she's got this glorious hair. She has a unique voice and accent. Like, you've heard of people like of the quintessential old-timey voice, darling.
The transatlantic.
The darling is Tallulah.
Love that.
That's where that
Love it.
comes from. Okay. Now, she has this unrestrained dancing and cartwheeling. Now, during her career in England, she cartwheeled whenever the script allowed and sometimes when it didn't. Cartwheeling was her deal.
I would like to see a script that allows for cartwheeling.
You know, I was a theatrical minor and I never had a script that called for it.
I can't say in all the scripts I've read or seen in my entire life, and there have been many I have ever seen a time for a cartwheel. So good for her, I guess.
Maybe she wrote them in herself.
It sounds like it.
She did a 10-month run of a play called The Dancers, probably cartwheel heavy, where there's a group of rabid young women who gather nightly in the gallery to express their love for this heroine. They're screaming, they're stomping, they're throwing flowers. Within 3 years, she'd attracted the most loyal and vociferous following in London. She ends up having, okay, so Arnold Barnett or Bennett notes ordinary stars get hands, and I'm assuming they mean claps. If Tallulah gets a hand, it is not heard. What is heard is a terrific, wild, passionate, historical roar and shriek.
Okay, so pre-Beatles,
Yeah,
Beatles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then he goes on to say, only the phrase of the psalmist can describe it. God is gone up with a shout.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so comparing her to biblical.
Love it for her.
I mean, yeah. Okay. So she informed a reporter from New York, quote, over here, they like me to Tallulah, dance and sing and romp and fluff my hair and play reckless parts. This chick became a verb.
Love that for her and me
Yes.
and all of us.
Now, she's described as what's called an accessible icon. um, which I found fascinating. She revels in her fans' idolatry. And so she always acknowledges them, whether she's on stage, whether she's off, she blows them kisses and utters the phrase, thank you, darlings. And this results in everybody just going ape.
It's working.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I don't even know what she looks like, and I'm a fan.
After a performance, she greets her fans, she signs autographs, chats with them. She's like, does the human thing where she asks about their family. And then she even invites some of them to her dressing room or to come home with her for a visit.
Okay.
Like, this is how you end up dead. This is how the true crime things start.
I'm glad I wasn't the first person that thought that. Okay.
Well, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Now, there's one of these devoted gallery girls named Eddie Smith. She becomes Tallulah's employee and is with her for 30 years. So this works out for some.
Wow. Okay.
So remember how I told you that Tallulah bought herself a Bentley?
And then dabbled in drugs.
Well, okay, maybe they're coinciding because she ends up not being good with directions.
Shocking.
And she constantly finds herself lost in London. And so she goes whenever she's incredibly lost. She telephones a taxi cab and pays the driver to drive to her destination while she follows behind the car.
I love that.
This is old timey.
R.I.P. Tallulah, you would have loved Apple Maps.
I know, it's incredible. The press also loves this because now they just need to find a Bentley following a taxi and they've got the opportunity to take a perfect shot.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine like just a random Tuesday? The Bentley's out.
There's a black taxi in front of it. Everybody take pictures. We'll get a good shot if we just keep holding down that capture button.
Mm-hmm.
So Tallulah plays in London. She's in like 16 different plays. Some of them are just incredible garbage, and others are Pulitzer Prize winnings. Um, like the Pulitzer Prize winning one is the one titled "They Knew What They Wanted." I didn't see it, read it. I don't know anything about it. Um, but she ends up missing playing a part for Sadie Thompson in Somerset Maugham's Reign. And when Maugham nixed her at the last minute, it makes her so despondent that she contemplates suicide. And
No, I need her to live. I need her to be the 80-year-old woman in the hideous caftan with the giant hair. Don't
just,
ruin this for me.
I'm not going to.
Okay.
One biographer said she'd swallowed 20 aspirin and scribbled a suicide note that said, "It ain't going to rain no mo." And then she laid down where she intended to just give it up. The next morning, she wakes up, she's feeling fine, and she's awakened by a phone call begging her to step into a leading role in Noel Coward's Fallen Angels.
The visual that just gave me. I'm going to die here. And
Yeah.
then, mm, lovely morning.
Yeah. And everything goes her way, you know? And I
Love
feel
this
like
for her.
that is such a good encapsulation on a reason to stay because you don't know what the next 12 hours will bring.
That's true.
Now, apparently, she doesn't just work while she's in London. Shocker.
Shocking. She's
That,
cartwheeling around London,
I mean,
obviously.
I'll get to that. I'll get to the cartwheeling. Don't you wait. Or just you wait. Now,
I will wait. Thank you so much.
she becomes famous for these offstage shenanigans, probably equally that are up to her flamboyant performances. Now, in her autobiography, she confides, quote, "Have I darkly hinted that for 8 years I shall cut a great swath in London? Well, damned well did. And it was all to spur my ego. Electrifying. London beau clamored for my company." Like this girl just knew exactly what she wanted and she went and took it.
Oh, love that for her.
She has this highly publicized fling with tennis champion John, I don't know, Borotra. Look, I'm not a big tennis
Okay.
person. What do I know? And then she also has a fling with Lord Birkenhead, and then their fraudulent Italian aristocrat who she almost marries. And the fraudulent Italian aristocrat that ends up being in the Toto book. I didn't cover it because I just was like, okay, I'm not going to really talk about this guy much. But to know that, like, oh yeah, I forgot that she almost married that dude.
A fraudulent Italian aristocrat, and you
There's
were
like
like, meh.
yeah, I mean, for both stories, it was just kind of like, these are things. But okay, like there's like a family of these
The fact
Italian
that that's like a
broskies.
normal thing for them is hilarious.
Right. Like, but they all are like, oh, we are Italian nobility. And everybody just kind of goes, okay.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Live your
And
life, man. I can do cartwheels.
to like, so this is just another day in her life. Now, Naps Ailington, he is always on her mind. And apparently, often in her bed.
Love this for her.
Now, she's approaching 30, and this is when
Oh my
she's
God.
really you're just feeling it deep in her feels because Naps is getting married to the daughter of an earl. And she's,
Naps.
I know,
Ugh, I hate this for her.
she's basically out of money now because she spends everything that she's earned and then some.
Well, she bought a Bentley. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like that in and of itself sets the
Hmm.
tone. Okay.
Now, suddenly, this is where the skies open again, and she gets this another windfall when there's an offer from Paramount that starts at $5,000 a week in
To do cartwheels?
1930 money, not to do cartwheels.
Oh.
Now, this is the moment when she is just so Hollywood's trying to like snatch up every attractive movie star or stage star they can find. And Tallulah's exotic. She's got this husky, seductive voice, and they're thinking she could be the next Greta Garbo. So we should get
Okay.
her in there. And so we have a letter that she wrote to her dad in January of 1931, where
Okay.
she embarks for New York, where she says to dad, Hollywood for me, I'm afraid.
I don't think that's bad.
No, I don't think so either. Um, it's for the next year and a half that Bankhead would make six feature films and a boatload of money, but none of these films really pan out.
Okay, but she has a boatload of money and she can do cartwheels. So,
And you know what? Maybe I don't put it in here, but at some point oh, I'll come back to the cartwheels bit. I'll come back to the cartwheels bit if I didn't put it in my notes because I may not have. Um, she explained that her more risque characters are always repentant in adherence to this 1934 Hays Code. So filmmakers are needing to kind of add a redemption arc to these broken, lost, crazy women. Now,
shocking.
despite that, Bankhead claims to have no regrets about her time in California because eventually she
No
returns to the
regrets.
stage.
Okay.
Now, one thing said it didn't matter whether she was leaping off a balcony to go back to her blind husband, escaping from a submarine that her crazed husband had sabotaged, or going on the streets to procure money for medicine needed for her desperately ill husband. So there's you see the theme, right? We have to have a reason that she's being insane. Reviewers either said that she was wasted on such a cliche or that she didn't live up to them.
I feel it's so opposite. Like,
It's basically they don't like her because she's a woman.
okay.
That's what it pans out to me. Like, and I'm probably adding my own spin on this a bit too hard. But either way, the audiences aren't really taking to her. It's just not working. George Cukor, who directed her once, he said that she just wasn't naturally photogenic, that she's got these beautiful bones, but her eyes were not made for movies. They somehow looked hooded and dead. But the reality is that and I've
Wow.
heard other people describe that there's a different kind of acting you need for stage versus you need for movie.
Yes.
And she ends up always projecting this larger than life personality to the audience. And as a result, it's always too big. And
Mm-hmm.
cameras like the nuance. They like the subtle eyebrow movement. They like those small twinges that show that there's a lot of depth and personality and nuance. So these movies basically suppressed and caged her. Now,
Sad.
Bette Davis tends to kind of be her film rival who actually survives and thrives in this kind of environment. Now, she benefits from studying Tallulah's vocal patterns and mannerisms, and she burns up the screen where Tallulah douses it.
Okay. So we figured it out for Davis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Bankhead goes on to get engaged in politics in 1930s during the Great Depression. She's got one person who writes about her saying, Frederickson, who says that in 1936, Bankhead lent her support to National Sharecroppers Week, something her father found particularly embarrassing. Because sharecroppers, like, This is the South, right? They live in a big ass mansion. Let's
And
think
I'm gonna
about this.
support the local farmers. That's, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Why would you do that?
Well, they're the low of the low.
Oh,
They're the
I'm
low of the low. Now, 1939, Tallulah advocates for the Work Progress Administration, or WPA, support for theater. Now, in addition, she also, I love this bit, she campaigned for the acquittal of the Scottsboro Boys. They're nine young black men wrongly
Oh
convicted in
yeah, yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah, okay. Good for her. She is working for all the right things. Dad's just being a jerk.
I mean,
Like,
dad is a white politician from the South.
fair.
You know, like when you lay it out
Mm-hmm.
like that, you can see how the pieces line up.
In the 30s. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You say the 30s, but honestly, if you said the 2030s, I'd buy it.
So would I.
Now, she's having all this fun in Hollywood as well. She's being Tallulah. She's got her roles, her suntan, nonstop parties. Joan Crawford reminisced.
Okay.
We all adored her. We were fascinated by her. We were scared to death of her too. I can't imagine Joan Crawford being scared of anything.
Honestly, yeah, you're right.
She goes on to say she had such authority as if she ruled Earth and she was the first woman on the moon.
Okay.
And then we've got Tallulah's sexual escapades. This includes an encounter with Johnny Weissmuller, who played Tarzan in the Garden of Allah pool, in which she reported that she had been a very satisfied Jane. Now,
Get it, girlfriend.
the biggest scandal was when she was created, or that she created, was a remark that she kind of tossed off in an interview. She says, I haven't had an affair for 6 months. 6 months! Too long. I want a man. Now, apparently, because we got that Hays Code going, this isn't the kind of publicity that the studios really want because they've got to have redemption arcs to everything, and then Tallulah's.
Good for her. She's just saying it like it is.
I know. Um, so she kind of gets like just she ends up back in Broadway. That's what happened. She ends up back in Broadway. Now,
Well, good. She can find a New York man then.
for another half a dozen years, she kind of fails at everything she does on stage. One thing happens that's awful in 1937. She decides to do Antony and Cleopatra, but she's got no classical technique and she refuses to be coached. She also butchers the
For
text.
Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Oh, honey.
Now, in the climactic scene where Cleopatra's handmaidens were eliminated, she decide or the deaths she can't have the deaths of the handmaidens because she's like, no, absolutely not. There's only one death in that scene, mine. So she modifies the script. One critic wrote that she was, quote, more a serpent of the Swanee than the Nile. Another quips, Tallulah Bankhead barged down the Nile last night as Cleopatra and sank.
Oh, that's rough.
So critics are not kind. But to be fair, I feel like she earned it. Now, she gets trapped in this disaster with a dude who's John Emery, who's a second rank actor. And Tallulah had kind of picked up on the summer circuit and kind of rather casually married this guy.
Oh, just kind of rather casually. Okay.
Like you do, like most marriages, just rather casually married. Now, Emery's this good looking, he's capable, he's amiable. And do you remember that one actor I said, John Barrymore, who tries to seduce her early on? He bears a resemblance to John Barrymore. Now, not only, okay, so when he revealed himself in his dressing room, Tallulah had sworn herself to anyone within earshot, never to sleep with anyone who wasn't, quote, hung like Barrymore. The way you pulled that drink from your mouth. I just want to say I saw that. I recognize your ability to not spit take on camera. I appreciate the dedication. I don't know
I don't know what
why.
to make of that. Because I thought when he presented herself to him that she was like, no, thank you, and was.
She was like, no, thank you, but she's also like, very nice.
I've seen the standard. Okay, bye.
Yeah. And so she goes on to say that she's going to stick to her word, but then she also at some point says that she's claimed like 500 or more conquests. So it's very difficult to think that she both maintained 500 horse-drawn carriages and also that number.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. Um, the story goes on to be a little bit more crazy. By the way, I hope you're not listening to this with your young kids in the car. If you've made it this far, Godspeed.
If they've made it this far, they know.
I mean, or they're super young and we're banking on them not remembering. Either way.
Okay.
No, so back to Hung Like Barrymore. Um, One of Tallulah's party tricks was to escort guests to the master bedroom where she would fling back the covers on the bed where hubby is sleeping and cry out, "Did you ever see a prick as big as that before?"
Why is he sleeping at her party?
Because the party probably went for 72 hours and he can't do enough cocaine.
Okay, that checks. That checks. Okay.
So, okay, size matters, but apparently not enough because she also tells people, well, darling, the weapon may be of admirable proportions, but its shot is indescribably weak.
Okay.
Now, apparently, when you say things like that about your husband, the marriage tends to not last very long.
It would not have lasted past the first time we threw the covers back and asked how lovely my prick was.
I mean, I guess that depends on the relationship and what
I
happens immediately
guess.
after. I mean, I don't know. But okay, during the 30s, Tallulah enters the hospital for what is announced as an abnormal tumor.
Okay.
What it actually is a case of gonorrhea.
Shocking.
So it's okay. So this ends up being so violent that it brings her close to death. She has a radical hysterectomy, and by the time she leaves the hospital, she's down to 70 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Now she's undaunted, and she announces to her doctor, "Don't think this has taught me a lesson."
Okay, live your life.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Now, the hysterectomy left her not only psychologically shaky, but also, quote, erotically diminished. So she testified that her lack of physical pleasure, and she's telling Tennessee Williams's friend Sandy Campbell this, that while she couldn't reach an orgasm with any man that she was in love with, and I'm just like, okay, wait a minute. Like we have like there's so many people writing down the tea around this woman.
Yeah. Okay.
She gives an example of multimillionaire Jock Whitney. Um, that, basically like, yeah, if I love him, I can't come to fruition. Now, Louise
But if she
Brooks,
doesn't love him,
I think then it's fine.
oh, that's
That's
weird.
kind of the implication. Louise Brooks
Okay.
reported to Kenneth Tynan, so lots of, you know, uh, going through the grapevine. Um, quote, I always guessed that she wasn't as interested in bed as everybody thought. So Tallulah seems to care about the conquest more than she does the actual physical act. She's just
I
carving
mean,
notches in the bedpost.
good for her.
Now,
She has a goal. She is going to achieve it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Another aspect of her pathology is her unrestrained exhibitionism. I don't know if we've touched on this yet. He. I feel like the whole thing has been unrestrained exhibitionism. She's famous for throwing off her clothes at parties, leaving the bathroom door wide open, and working without panties on.
Go live her life, man.
Maybe this is where the cartwheels come in.
Oh, yeah, okay. That makes
Okay,
sense.
yeah, I did put it in my notes. Um, She's performing in Thornton's Wilder's The Skin of Our Teeth. So many people in the audience complained that the Actors Equity had an order to tell her to wear underpants on stage.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine coming into work and the notes from your boss are, could you please wear underwear?
Yeah,
Please.
please, please. 17
Look,
families spoke
Tallulah.
to us on stage or off
Yeah,
stage in a
this
very
isn't a
Karen-like
me thing.
attitude.
We've been, people have thoughts.
Yeah,
Could you please?
ticket sales are dropping. We just want to keep you employed. It's just panties. That's it.
That's all I'm asking. You could take them right off as soon as we're done.
Yeah, just backstage even. Don't even, just as long as you're on stage.
Yeah.
It's around this time that that marriage implodes because apparently Broski is just done with these antics.
Uh, hung like a Barrymore.
Yeah,
That marriage. Okay.
yeah. Now, when she's making the movie Lifeboat with Alfred Hitchcock, um, he's fielding complaints, quote, with his much quoted deliberation about whether the wearing pants or underwear um, needs to be referred to the makeup or hairdressing department.
Such a problem for Alfred Hitchcock.
I mean, the man who we all know by name, and he's just like, maybe if we comb it differently.
Oh, if I was a hairdresser, I would quit my job that day. Like I'm out. Like absolutely not. Comb it. I'm trying to get it together. I really, really am. I
You
can't,
know, we're
can't.
still in the 30s. I don't know what you're on about. I've got decades.
I got it.
Now, from her start, her political mentor had always been her father, and he ends up kicking the bucket in 1940. And although she'd always claimed that he was the most important figure in her life, the harsh reality is that they are basically never comfortable being near each other. And so they basically spent no time together. Her biographer, Lobenthal, he is convincing when he says that paper trail records put her attempts to define boundaries in the relationship, but when she did write, her invariable reconciliation of only good news also tells us that she also sought his approval.
Okay.
So all of this makes sense to me. Like it matches my confirmation bias that I have on who I think she is in relation to her dad.
Yeah.
Now, all of her relationships with her biological family are about this complicated, but she does start to,
Shocking.
I know, right? Surprise. Um, she does build this new family, and there's this young actress, Eugenia Rawls, who ends up playing her daughter in I think it's the movie The Little Foxes. And Eugenia ends up becoming an integral part of her life, and she made Rawls's husband her lawyer. And
Okay.
apparently, there was a shampoo commercial that used the name Tallulah in an advertising jingle, and Tallulah takes the shampoo company to court and wins.
Okay.
Now, she ends up becoming the godmother of this couple's two children, which
It's no.
that is wild. You,
Okay.
if anything happens to me, you know who needs to take care of you two girls? Tallulah, this incredible motherly figurehead. She'll raise you right.
I just, I'm thinking, okay, maybe from the perspective of like teaching them how to get what they want, like don't back down, you do like that, but I can't see her cutting up peanut butter and jellies anytime soon.
No, no. She's not putting band-aids on boo-boos, kissing them,
No,
making better.
no, okay.
But either way, when Tallulah would end up passing, she would leave each of these girls a quarter of her very large estate.
Okay.
Now, Rawls ends up in a book saying that she both loved and understood the older woman, saying, quote, Tallulah could be savage. her appetites of mind and body wild and sometimes gross, as if everything had to be possessed, devoured, and destroyed. None of this mattered. It was though all the dross burned away, leaving someone frail and loyal and eager to please. You know, the perfect people to have as godmother to your two children.
Yeah, this checks. Okay.
Yeah. In 1948, Bankhead endorsed Democratic president contender Harry Truman's civil rights platform and spoke out against the Dixiecrats who bolted from the party.
Good for her.
The International Ladies Garment Union, or the Garment Workers Union, invited Tallulah to introduce Truman on the radio. So she is just doing everything big and believing things and acting on them. And I love this. The following year, this is probably my favorite part of this entire story. I really hope you hear every single word of this. Bankhead wrote Federal Bureau of Investigation Director J. Edgar Hoover about iconic jazz singer Billie Holiday's drug arrest.
Okay.
Tallulah strategically reminded Hoover of his relationship with Will Bankhead. Tallulah, unfortunately, used stereotypes in the letter that implied that her friend and rumored lover was weak and needed psychological help. So that part's the unfortunate bit. However, like the references to her father, this could have been an attempt to persuade the reactionary Hoover. Over the phone, Tallulah claimed that Holiday should not be, quote, confined within prison walls.
Good.
Now, when Holiday died in 1959, Bankhead sent roses for her casket with a card reading, God bless you. Love from Tallulah.
Hmm.
But the fact that this woman stood up to J. Edgar Hoover was like, remember your relationship with my daddy? Maybe you need to stand down.
Maybe you should sit down.
Darling, maybe you're doing too much.
Hoover? Never.
Mm. 1950, Tallulah ushered out commercial radio with a bang as she ends up emceeing this weekly hour and a half extravaganza called The Big Show. Surprise, everybody, including her, didn't realize that this was going to be hailed by critics as the potential savior to radio. It's an immediate hit.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, listening to air checks of The Big Show today is like slipping through the cracks in time. You have Ethel Merman plugging Call Me Madam and trading insults with Tallulah. Um, Jimmy Duarte is making hash of his lines. You got Groucho Marx. He's singing Some Enchanted Accent or Some Enchanted Evening with a Yiddish accent. Bob Hope is cracking Benny Hinn joke or Jack Benny jokes. Tallulah is cracking Bette Davis jokes because she's accusing Bette Davis of taking everything that she does to turn it to stage. And when she isn't, and that's when she's not doing Dorothy Parker monologues. So it is just this huge variety show for
Yeah, it sounds
radio.
like it.
And this is an incredible one. It says, like this quote is, you rise to her generosity, her sense of fun, her self-deprecation, her giggle, her unerring timing. This was a deserved but short-lived success as radio inevitably lost out to television.
Video killed the radio star.
Exactly, exactly that. So during the 1950s, she publicized her connections with Black public figures in order to bring attention and resources to the civil rights movement. Bankhead and jazz legend W.C. Handy endowed funds to support Black musicians, and Tallulah spoke at a dinner for Handy at the Waldorf Astoria in 1951.
Okay.
Now, 1952, Bankhead wrote an article for Ebony about jazz musician Louis Armstrong. And 4 years later, Bankhead spoke at a civil rights rally in New York City, along with former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt.
Wow.
Now, this
All
was
I
all,
can think of is the gonorrhea, and
she just
she's like
a
turning
full
herself.
figured life
Yeah.
because it's
It's
not only Eleanor Roosevelt, Rosa Parks is there. And then
yes.
there's another woman. authoring Lucy, who's the first Black student to enroll at the University of Alabama.
That is so cool.
So this
I
is
love
such
this.
and it like this is one of those stories where you're like, this woman is so deep, it's hard like to reduce her down. And she typically just gets reduced down to just this sex crazed starlet.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
But when you pull back the cover a little bit, you're like, no, there is multitudes within this human.
Did you really have to say pull back the cover?
That was unintentional.
Okay.
No, 1960, journalist Alan Morrison interviews Bankhead about her politics for Ebony, and Bankhead did not discuss the South's history on race and she didn't embrace these anachronistic customs from the time period. So that is kind of this incredible thing. She okay, I go into the next paragraph. I won't separate from my notes too far because there's so much stuff in my brain that I want to give you everything all at once, and then I'm going to mess up my own story. Um, but there's also kind of problems that she has because there's an example of a photo of Tallulah in fur, and she's beside her maid. In 1949, Bankhead had accused the former maid of stealing from her. And this ends up forcing the woman to come forward with the truth that the money that was, quote, stolen went to pay for drugs and sex for Tallulah. So, complicated figure.
Hmm.
Now, on the other hand, Morrison goes on to say that Tallulah consistently spoke out against lynching and disenfranchisement. Bankhead also, and this is probably the best part of the story, well, not the best part of the story because I said about everything here, had the foresight of casting aside this myopic understanding of racial inequality as solely a Southern problem. She instead is also pointing out issues like housing in the urban North,
Good.
where
Good
she's
for
like,
her.
look, this isn't just a South thing. We're all guilty
This
of
is
it. It's systemic.
good for her.
This woman somehow passes the age 50.
I have been wondering this whole time, like, how are we still alive?
I mean,
Spike, because I bet you grandma's still alive too.
now Tallulah's demons are also growing stronger. And while she'd always been a heavy drinker, she's now consuming a quart of bourbon a day.
Oh, okay.
Now, she's mixing this with Tweenol, Benzedrine, Dexedrine, Dexamyl, and morphine.
Okay.
Now, she'd always been an insomniac, but now she is frantic for sleep.
Okay. Maybe put down that cocktail.
Yeah, maybe that's not helping. Now, as far back as 1948, she'd been observed knocking back 5 Sequinols, which I think are kind of a sleep aid, and a brandy chaser after a night of drinking.
Oh,
And she can't bear to be alone. Friends, colleagues, servants, and the young men she attached to, whom she called her caddies, would be wheedled and ordered to sit on her bed or lie in her bed all night while she struggled for sleep.
could they sleep?
I don't think so, because the next line is she couldn't stop talking.
Okay.
Someone followed her around one day and claimed that she racked up 70,000 words, the length of a novel.
Wow.
Songwriter Howard Dietz commented, "A day away from Tallulah is like a month in another country."
Wow. Okay.
Uh, Biographer Lobenthal writes, bills for rolls and rolls of 3-inch adhesive tape observed in her hotel room suite, as it turned out that her maid was taping her wrists together at night to keep her from taking more pills during the intervals of wakefulness.
Like,
Yeah, like tying her wrists together like an inmate.
wow.
One night, a colleague saw her in a hotel hallway, quote, a wild woman, like a caged temp. Lobenthal chimp, not
Chimp.
temp.
Okay.
Um,
I'm like, what kind of animal is that? I've never heard
yeah,
of that before.
you won't see it at the zoo. Lobenthal continues, straggle-haired, barely wrapped in a thin robe, she flailed at the wall, sputtering, "Where am I?" There were serious accidents and psychotic episodes. because she was violent under sedation.
Wow.
So that's great.
That hysterectomy really did her in.
I mean, I feel like birth really did her in.
I mean,
She's been a vibe from the start.
that's true.
Orson Welles called her the most sensational case of the aging process being unkind.
Ooh,
He
that's
goes on
rough.
to say, I'll never forget how awful she looked at the end and how beautiful she looked at the beginning. And that is just harsh and probably a way I would describe somebody. I'd be like, hey, look, this is what it is. She would go on to say, or like, so at some point, just maintaining that self-deprecating humor that she had, somebody on the street would ask, aren't you Tallulah Bankhead? And she'd answer, I'm what's left of her darling.
I mean, okay, like at least she recognizes it.
For years, she'd been going on saying that she wanted to die. And once playing the truth game with Tennessee Williams, she confessed, I'm 54 and wish always, always for death. I've always wanted death. Nothing else do I want more. And it's more than a dozen years later, in 1968, that she succumbs. She ends up getting double pneumonia. Her last
Oh,
words, codeine bourbon.
damn.
Now, on and off screen, Tallulah Bankhead played the villain. Her favorite role was the murderess Regina in Alabama-born playwright Lillian Hellman's The Little Foxes in 1939. She gave a high camp performance in the 1967 horror film Fanatic. Though she enjoyed playing the careless rebel, Tallulah was a champion of the poor, the outsider, and the underdog. While she sometimes got it wrong, she rarely kept quiet about what she thought was right. As Bankhead told Ebony in 1960, quote, if you say you believe in something, say it loud enough to be heard.
I adore her.
And let me show you pictures of Tallulah.
I imagine her as Cruella de Vil.
Actually, she was the inspiration for Cruella.
I was gonna ask you that because I was like, she sounds like she'd be such a good Cruella de Vil. That's amazing.
So,
Oh, wow. Okay, so she is stunning.
yeah,
Mm.
this second picture is Tallulah and Toto.
I was gonna ask, where's the connection? Like I've been waiting for that
Well, they
connection.
they dated, and then Toto was like, "This girl is great and great fun, but I mean, honestly, she's a bit chaotic, and I I can't."
Did they date when she was in England?
I think so, yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so the first picture is your essential black and white like sh headshot. She's got the long pearls on, the perfectly red. You know those lips are red.
Oh, they're
Like,
blood red, but they're black in the image because black and white, but they are
right.
blood red.
The incredibly thin eyebrows, the finger waved hair, but it's down, so just very glamorous. Like she is gorgeous. In the second picture, she is with Toto, and they are they both wearing furs? It
I
looks to
believe so,
me.
yeah. She's got that fox tail hanging right down there, so that's her stole, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Okay. Oh, they are just stunning. Yep, it's definitely giving Cruella de Vil.
Yeah. So Tallulah is kind of propped on the back of a chair, stole wrapped around like her elbows as she's kind of reclined with a cigarette.
And it's white, but her gown is black. Or the stool is white, black, but her gown is white.
Yeah, yeah. And
Oh, I
then
love it.
this is Grandpa, that is Dad, that is
Okay.
Tallulah, and that is Eugenia. And I don't understand why they say that she finally blossomed into the same beauty as Eugenia, because I am not seeing Eugenia as this incredibly beautiful girl. She just looks kind of dowdy in this image.
In this image, yeah, very much so. Tallulah's definitely taking the stars here on this one.
Yeah. Um, and then the last one I have is this promotional image of Tallulah Bankhead and Clive Brook in Tarnished Lady by Paramount Pictures.
She is leaning on a bar, cigarette in hand, hand on face, like, ugh, why am I here?
Her other hand is holding a glass of probably bourbon.
Yep. Oh my gosh. How much fun. What a life. I'm still stuck on the fact that like you made the comment that life has been out to get her since she was born. And I'm like, honestly, I'm glad she beat it.
Yeah, I mean, but she's just one of those incredibly larger than life stories, and I loved being able to piece together a lot of that nuance.
Yeah, because I think you're right. You would typically get the whittled down version.
I mean, going through the sources, it was either you got activist Tallulah that kind of mentioned the acting, or you got the, can you believe that she did cartwheels without panties? But it wasn't like
Shocking.
the holistic view of like, okay, but and okay, and then
Yeah, we can all do crazy things, but be right about our thought process.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that for her. Get it, Tallulah. Thank you for that.
hmm And I think about this when I meet young children named Tallulah.
I, I will too.
Yep. And I'm just like, either your parents didn't know or they have big, big plans for you, child. And I hope they also involve therapy.
Because therapy would have helped.
Maybe.
I mean, she
Maybe.
wasn't going to go, but it was
Everybody
an
else will.
option. Yeah, everybody else is going to need it.
But yeah, if you are thinking, holy Toledo, what happens when both Angie and Teresa tell stories the same day? Yeah, we don't know. Let us know. But join us next week where we probably do the same thing and we have like joined together and tell shorter stories. Rate, review, subscribe, come back, and share us with your favorite person who ought not to be the godmother of your children. And on that note,
Bye.
goodbye.